Welcome to the video. First, we will introduce the core idea. An H-1B status approved inside the U.S. is not the same as having a visa stamp that allows you to re-enter the country. Next, we will outline how traveling after domestic approval can expose you to consular review and shifting external policies. Finally, we will preview the high wage threshold concept and why it matters. In this agenda, we will first break down the difference between internal status approval and external visa stamping. Then we will explore consular review risks, discuss high wage threshold policies, evaluate likely outcomes, and give you a practical pre-travel checklist. Finally, we will test your understanding with short quizzes. Let's set the scene. You were in the United States in J-1 status and successfully adjusted to H-1B with an I-797 approval. Everything seems stable. However, once you leave the country, you must obtain a visa stamp at a U.S. consulate to return. That requirement changes the risk profile completely because external policies and consular discretion apply. Now we will examine why status approval is not the same as a visa. Here is the essential distinction. An I-797 approval notice documents that you have immigration status inside the United States. By contrast, a visa stamp is a travel document issued by a U.S. consulate abroad that permits you to request admission at the border. If you do not leave the country, your approved H-1B status can continue. But if you travel internationally, you must visit a consulate and apply for a visa stamp. That step subjects you to current external policies and consular scrutiny. If those policies are unfavorable, the consulate can refuse or delay the visa, preventing your return to the U.S. job even though your I-797 is valid. Next, we'll add a clear disclaimer. Before we go further, this content is educational and not legal advice. Immigration regulations and executive actions change. Your situation may differ in important ways, so you should consult a qualified immigration attorney for personalized advice. Now, let's examine how consular review changes the risk profile. When you go for visa stamping, the consular officer is not bound by your domestic I-797 approval. Instead, the officer applies current law, policy, and guidance, which may include active executive proclamations or travel restrictions. In addition, administrative processing under Section 221G can delay adjudication. Consequently, whether you can return to the United States can hinge on the policy environment on the day of your interview. Next, we will compare AOS and visa stamping side by side. On the left, adjustment of status and the I-797 reflect an internal grant that allows you to work while inside the country. However, it is not a travel document. On the right, a visa stamp is required to re-enter, is issued abroad, and is subject to the full set of external policies and consular discretion. The key takeaway is that travel forces you into the external system and its risks. Next, we will discuss the so-called 100K threshold and related protectionist filters. High wage or protectionist policies can require a role to meet certain wage levels or prevailing wage criteria. Internally, an adjustment of status may proceed without confronting some of the same filters applied by consulates abroad. However, when you seek a visa stamp, you face those policies directly. If your labor condition application or offered wage doesn't align with prevailing requirements, the officer may refuse the visa. Next, we will visualize how policy shifts over time affect decisions. This timeline illustrates that from roughly 2017 onward, there were periods of heightened scrutiny, then pandemic-era travel restrictions, partial reopenings, and ongoing backlogs. It also shows when wage-related filters intensified or softened. The point is that the risk profile changes over time, and your stamping outcome will depend on the policy climate at the moment of your interview. Next, we will map outcomes across common scenarios. This matrix summarizes potential outcomes. If you do not travel, you usually continue working without consular exposure. If you travel and meet wage thresholds with no active restrictions, issuance is more likely. If restrictions are active, even strong cases can face delays or additional checks. If your wage or role does not align with thresholds, refusal risk increases, especially when restrictions are active. Next, we'll convert these insights into a practical pre-travel checklist. Use this checklist before any international trip. First, verify the validity of your I-797 and dates. Then, compare your offered wage and the LCA to prevailing wage requirements and any high-wage filters. Next, review current travel restrictions and assess consular backlogs at your target post. Gather strong documentation to support your role and employer. Consider timing risks stemming from appointment scarcity or 221G delays. Consult a qualified immigration attorney for individualized advice. Finally, decide whether to travel now or postpone until the policy climate improves. Next, we will walk through a brief case study. Consider an engineer who adjusted from J1 to H-1B and holds a valid I-797. The employer's wage is competitive, but sits below a stringent high-wage benchmark used in certain policy climates. The engineer travels for a family event and attends a consular interview. Due to current external policies, the consular officer applies wage scrutiny and places the case in 221G administrative processing. The engineer cannot return to work on schedule, and access to the approved job is effectively blocked pending resolution. Next, let's check your understanding with a quick quiz. Question: which statement best captures the difference between I-797 approval and a visa stamp? Option A: they are identical, both allow re-entry. Option B: I-797 proves status inside the U.S. The visa stamp is needed to re-enter after travel. Option C: the visa stamp matters only for first-time entrants, not for existing H-1B workers. Option D: either document alone guarantees entry regardless of policy climate. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. The I-797 documents status inside the United States, whereas the visa stamp is required to re-enter after international travel. Now, let's test your understanding of the safest course of action during restrictive policy periods. Question: what is the safest general advice during periods of significant immigration restrictions? Option A: travel freely. Domestic approval ensures re-entry. Option B: delay travel until entry stamping policies are clearly favorable. Option C: lower your wage to avoid scrutiny. Option D: skip the consular interview if you already have I-797. You may pause the video now to think about the answer. We will discuss the answer in the next section of the video. The correct answer is B. During periods of significant immigration restrictions, the most conservative approach is to delay travel until entry stamping policies are clearly favorable. Next, we will depict the stakeholder handoffs using a sequence diagram. This sequence shows how responsibility moves across actors. The employer files with USCIS and secures domestic status approval. When you travel, the consulate applies current policies and may add administrative processing. After visa issuance, the final decision belongs to CBP at the port of entry. Each handoff presents its own risk. Next, we will summarize key points. These are the core takeaways. Status approval inside the United States does not guarantee a visa stamp. Consular officers can deny or delay issuance based on current policies. Wage and role criteria can trigger adverse outcomes. During restrictive periods, postponing travel can be the safest option. Always apply a thorough checklist and seek legal counsel for your specific facts. Next, we will wrap up with a concise summary. To summarize, domestic approval maintains your status in the United States, but it doesn't permit re-entry after travel. A visa stamp is required. International travel exposes you to consular review and the prevailing policy environment. If wage or role criteria don't meet the applicable thresholds, refusal risk increases. The conservative strategy during restrictive periods is often to delay travel until conditions clearly improve. Finally, we will close with a call to action. Thank you for watching. If this video helped you understand the risks of traveling after domestic H-1B approval, please like, share, and subscribe. Share your questions or experiences in the comments so others can learn from them. See you in the next video.